Cheers, welcome in. Happy Homebrew Wednesday. My video's late. It's actually Friday night. I'm getting ready to watch Craig on Vaughn Live. Trying to edit this video quickly. Bad news, good news. Good news is the video is actually my first brew video. I brewed up the pale ale on Wednesday night. I had other footage of my intro and stuff from Wednesday night, but I wanted to update you guys quickly. I had the brew down here. It seemed like it was getting a little cold. It was about 64 degrees and it hadn't been bubbling crazy after about 18 hours. So I moved it upstairs. I wanted to kind of keep it in the higher end. So it's sitting now at about 68 to 70 degrees and it's bubbling away very nicely. There's excellent hop aromas coming out of the airlock and I couldn't be happier. So yeah, I've got the video. Why don't you guys take a look and we'll come back and we'll talk about the brown ale, which was kegged on Sunday night. Cheers. Alright guys, so I've got actually just 1 gallon of water on the stove top in my pot, and I'm going to go ahead and add the light dry malt extract and the dark dry malt extract right now. And I actually had wanted to do a little more than that. I was hoping to do 2 gallons, but I've actually run into a problem with my regular brew kettle in the stovetop, which we can talk about a little later once we get into the video. So right now I'm just going to add these before we get too much of a boil and too much steam coming up off the surface of the water. And so just do that like so. I did sanitize my spoon, but it doesn't really matter at this point because the water is going to boil and everything will get sanitized at that point as well. So here's the dry malt extract, and as you can see it is clumping a little bit at the bottom of the bag there, right where it's coming out, but we'll just do our best to kind of get everything in, get it mixed up nice. Get everything off the spoon. Like so. And that looks pretty good. Pretty mixed in there. Alright, we'll get the dark malt. And the problem I actually had with my other pot was that the edges of it were raised, so it wasn't making full contact with the element on a flat cooktop. This pot is actually one of my wife's regular cooking pots, and it has a flat bottom, so it makes good contact and it boils much quicker. So here we go. We'll just add the dark malt and get that all mixed in, and we'll be back when it boils. Alright guys, we're back. The dry malt extract has come to a boil. I've got the Cascade, half an ounce of Cascade, and Amarillo, half an ounce of Amarillo. So that will go in for our first hop addition, and that will boil for about 15 minutes. We'll set our timer and be right back. Here we are guys, we're back at the about the 5-minute mark of the boil. We're going to add a half ounce of Cascade and the other half ounce of Amarillo. And we'll boil that now for 5 minutes and kill the heat. Add our dextrose that's sitting over there on the counter, and then we'll get it into our ice bath. So we'll see you guys in a little bit. Alright guys, so we're in the last 5 minutes of the boil. As you can see, that's still kind of rolling on. If you look down here, you can see my large sanitation vessel that I've shown you guys in the past. Right now, all of the star sand is in the fermenter. I've got my strainer and my airlock in there as well. I've got the lid on that. I keep agitating it, kind of shaking it up, making sure the inside of that fermenter is getting nice and sanitized. Up here actually is just my bucket that I store my star sand in my spray bottle as well. And then over here, you can actually, right there is Red Dog. It's my dog Red. He hangs out and brews with me on occasion. And here is the ice bath that I just quickly talked about. This is kind of what I do when I'm brewing inside quick and I don't want to hook the chiller up to the sink and get the hoses out and everything else. This seems to work really good for me. It's only a gallon of liquid that we've boiled, so I add a 20-gallon party bag of ice to this Rubbermaid container. And right now there's just 1 gallon of water in there. I'll add my pot in and then add water to bring the level of ice and water up to the edge of the pot and let it sit, and it cools off really quickly. So we are at the end of the boil here, so I'm gonna get that into the ice bath and we'll show you what that looks like. Here is the ice bath. I put the fermenter in there. I actually put a bowl upside down in the bottom of it, and then what I do is set the pot on top of the bowl and add water so that the water comes up fairly high on the pot so that all of the liquid is submerged in the ice and water. And then that way I know that nothing will shift, my pot won't tip and take on water, so to speak, and nothing will affect my wort as it's cooling. And what you can see is I've actually added a piece of tin foil just to cover the top of the pot. I just don't want random things to be dropping in to the wort in the air throughout this process. So I kind of do that and I peel it back, you know, a third of the way, maybe half of the way, and as you can see it's venting off some steam pretty heavily right now, and surprisingly this will cool down in about 15 minutes I've found, which is pretty quick. It's not as fast as when you get the chiller going, but it does the trick, and then I can add enough cold liquid to the primary with the can kit and everything else to cool it down enough. So it seems to do the trick and reduces some of the labor that's involved with the chiller and the hoses and everything else. So we'll see you back here when it's time to put this into the primary. Alright guys, here we go. I am going to transfer the wort that we just brewed and cooled down into the primary. I'm going to add 1 more gallon of water just prior to adding my dextrose. I didn't actually add the dextrose at flame out because I figured there was really no need. It doesn't need to be boiled or sanitized or anything else, so I'm just going to add it in now. So I've added another gallon of water, and I got my spoon that I used during brewing that's been back in my sanitizer, and so now I will add in my dextrose and give this a little stir to kind of mix it in. And now we will add our liquid malt extract from our Cooper's Australian Pale Ale kit. This is been sitting in hot water the entire time, so it is nice and workable. The lid, I fear, is like almost ready to fall off, so I'm actually going to just take it off and give that a quick scrape here just to make sure I can get everything off of that. There's not much on there, but what is I want to get in there, so I'll do that and discard that there, and then I'm going to take the can and just give it a good scrape and try and get everything out of this as I can. I usually take hot water and try and get as much in here as I can clean it out as much as I can, but I'm just going to scrape it tonight because I'm a little strapped for time and I didn't prepare any hot water, so this will be good enough. It's almost all out of there anyways. All that goodness out. And I can actually use my tap water if I want to try and get just a little bit more out, but I'm going to stir this in really good. Alright, so after taking the temperature, I need to add some cold water to bring this down a little bit more. So I'm going to top it off here with a couple gallons of cold water and take the temperature in between each gallon and just try to get as close as I can to about 68 degrees. And we'll be back once we get there. Welcome down into the basement. We've got the pale ale in the primary fermenter, and here I've got my bucket of Star San. I have monitored the temperature and basically got as close to 68 degrees as I can. The bucket thermometer is reading between 68 and 70. It's going down to 68, so it leads me to believe the liquid in the bucket is 68 degrees. The thermometer is reading 68, so I'm pretty happy with it. I've got my US 05 yeast here that I'm looking at the screen, it's a little upside down, but I'm using the US 05. It's an ale yeast. It does best, you know, at 59 to 71.6 degrees. So to be honest with you, I'm probably going to pitch this and move the bucket upstairs because, well, no, I take that back. It's going to continue to drop because it's a little colder down here. So what will happen is it sits about 60, 62 down here. So that's the bottom end of the yeast. And once it kind of gets going and it's really moving along here in the first couple days, it's probably going to be up closer to 70, maybe 72 until it starts to come down a little bit. So it should be the perfect range. We'll see. What I do is I dunk my yeast packet in Star San and get my scissors out. I've actually had a little bit of tin foil over the airlock hole just as I've been moving it around to try and make sure, you know, again, nothing gets in there, it stays sanitized. I've got my Star San bottle here that I'll use to fill up the airlock. The airlock is sitting in this bucket here, so we're pretty much good to go. I'm gonna make sure all the yeast is down the bottom, cut the top of this packet off, and what I do is actually take the yeast and sprinkle it, you know, evenly around the top. Make sure I make a nice even layer all the way around, and I don't stir it in. I know I should probably rehydrate my yeast, you know, and I've been looking into that more. I've used before I kind of came back to brewing over the, you know, first part of this year, I used to use or I had used in the past some liquid, some Y yeast stuff, and I just been using the dry yeast. And like I said, trying to do basic beers. Take this year to kind of rededicate myself and get back into brewing, and it's been great. And I'm ready to start doing some different stuff in the new year, and we'll talk about that as we move forward. So I've got an even layer of yeast. I'm going to put the lid back on the bucket and just actually twist the bucket. So I pick it up and I twist it like this. I don't really agitate it too much. I mean, I've been stirring it and doing everything else upstairs, so I feel like it's good enough. But what I want to do is just work that yeast into the first top layer of the beer, and I can still see some of it there under the foam. I'm good. I'm going to leave that. Sometimes I do it 2-3 times, but I kind of like where it's at. So make sure this is on there good and tight. And it is. Give it one more little twist just for good luck. And And I'm going to actually drain this. This is the Star Sand that I had mixed up prior. I actually got rid of the Star Sand that I had been using for the last couple weeks with the brown ale when I kegged it. So I had gotten it dirty a little bit during the kegging process because I was in the dining room and not in the kitchen. So I decided just to pitch it. It'd been a couple weeks, and I got a new batch mixed up tonight. So I'll put that there. Go in here and find my airlock. Get that in there. Good. All right. All right, so I'm going to add a little Star Sand to this. Horrible at pouring that Star Sand, I guess. And tap this on there. The lid. Straighten that up. And I'm going to actually just grab a paper towel to wipe that up real quick. Alright guys, this is the pale ale here, ready to ferment. It is cleaned off, the airlock is secure, filled to the line, and it's ready to take off. This is the Australian Pale Ale kit from Cooper's. Pound of dark DME, a pound of light DME, 368 grams of dextrose, half ounce of Amarillo and Cascade at 15 minutes, or 17 minutes rather, and a half ounce of both at 5 minutes. And that was basically added to the bucket with the Cooper's kit and the DME and topped off. Temperature came right in line, and we pitched the yeast in probably about a half hour later. So ice bath worked great. Everything turned out awesome. Alright, so you guys got a chance to check out the video. Really happy with the way everything turned out. Like I said, the only thing was the temperature with the fermenter. You know, it's winter here now. It's almost Christmas, and it's a little cooler down here in the basement. So I moved it up there, and I turned the temperature up there down a little bit, so room temperature, because I didn't want it to get too high and get into that 72, 74 range, which is the highest end you want to be in with the US-05 that I've read anyway. So yeah, that's about it on the pale ale. I've got the brown ale right here. This was kegged on Sunday night, and really I put 35 pounds of pressure on it. I let it sit Sunday night, Monday night, and I tasted it Tuesday when I got home from work. And I gotta say, that first night I was really super impressed. It had a nice spice profile. The cherry, you know, wasn't strong or prominent. It has a really nutty kind of a brown ale, not brown ale smell to it. It does have a sweetness to it too. You can kind of smell a caramely or a candy kind of sugary sweetness, which I think is the brown sugar that was in it in the primary. And then the spices have come through. They've since mellowed out. It's now a week old almost. It's Friday, so it'll be a week on Sunday that it's been in the keg. But it's a great beer. I'm really impressed with it. I would brew it again. And if I did, I'd probably add some more of the cherry flavoring and some more spices to it as well. But it's a really good beer. It's fairly light drinking, so I feel like you could have a few of them. It's 6.2%, so you know it would catch up with you. But that's it, guys. Cheers. Happy Homebrew Wednesday to everybody. More importantly, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I changed the channel around a little bit. I got the trailer up there. I'm happy with the channel, and like I said, happy to be moving into the new year. You know, we had our second child, our little boy, and he's doing great, and our daughter's doing great, you know, and so I just wish everybody a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. And cheers in 17. If I don't see you guys before Christmas, you know, this video was late, next week's might be late, you know, Merry Christmas. I'm going to try and keg the pale ale. I may dry hop it. I don't know. I was going to dry hop it. We'll see. That'll be my update for Wednesday, whether I dry hop it or keg it. So, cheers. Happy Homebrew Wednesday. Love that brown ale.